right? We're going to get started. Phones down. Faces up. All right, I'm going to start off first with a very unusual question. Morning person, raise your hand. Not a morning person. Oh, yeah. Woohoo! All right, so I am not a morning person at all, so I'm very excited to see both my demo today or presentation today as well as tomorrow are both in the afternoon. And I'm glad to see a lot of you here smiling, excited as much as I am. A lot of learning. So I want to make sure that the time here that you're committed to this session, that first of all I'm thankful for and that it is useful for you. My name is Lavkesh Babar. I'm a sales consultant in San Francisco Bay Area, dealing with a lot of strategic accounts. And this particular topic around Creator, Explorer, Viewer is something that I've spent a lot of time on analyzing, so I want to bring some of my thoughts to you. I thought it would be good for us to have an agenda, just to kind of ground us in like what we are going to talk about. So we will talk about the role-based subscription model, what it is. What is the value of the model? What does it really mean? Why did we actually go ahead and do this, right? Maybe I will ask another question here. How many of you actually have Tableau server licenses in your organization on a perpetual core model? Okay. If you can keep your hands up that you are going to consider, and maybe that's why you're here, trying to understand the value of the new model. Okay, a lot of you. So, this is a very relevant session. For the rest of you who are not on that model, just trying to understand what this really new model means. There's a lot of good content for you as well, because I'm trying to make sure that this is not just relevant for people who have Tableau server installations, but also for people who are maybe migrating from another legacy BI tool as well. So hopefully something helpful for you. We will also cover what does this real viewer, explorer, creator really mean, like kind of go into the details rather than looking at just a matrix, but kind of go through a business scenario. And then tools and methodology around assessing our user types. So how do we actually do that? I've done a lot of that work myself, so again, I'll bring that information to you. And I think a lot of that is something that you can apply to non-Tableau server installations as well. And I believe we will have a healthy time left for Q&R. Might say Q&A, because I don't think I have all the answers. I can just respond, and hopefully that would be something that's helpful for you. Okay, role-based subscription models. What are these? So earlier this year, we launched what's called Tableau Creator, Tableau Explorer, and Tableau Viewer. As we go further, don't spend too much time kind of reading through the details at the bottom, but at a very high level, what is a viewer? Somebody who can view and interact with analytics. In Tableau speak, they will use the Tableau server or an online license. That's the tool, that's the middle portion. Leave the bottom part out because we'll cover a lot of that in detail. You don't have to read through that. What is an explorer? It's somebody who can explore and have that full breadth of self-service analytical capabilities. They will use, again, a Tableau server or an online license as a tool to do that. And we'll talk about the functionalities that they will have access to compared to a viewer. And Tableau Creator, this is sort of the powerful suite of be-all and end-all of the Tableau products, if you will. They will use Tableau Desktop, Tableau Prep, and a server or an online license to kind of do their job. Okay? Now, why are we doing this? What is the value of this new model? So for those of you who are, for those of you who are on the capacity model, so the capacity model is essentially, I have X number of cores that I have purchased, 8, 100, 500, whatever that might be. I'm limited by capacity. I can add as many users as I want. As we convert those into the new one, the thought process behind that is that this is something I've personally seen, and a lot of organizations are struggling with. As you open up Tableau and your adoption goes more and more, and that could happen in two ways. You add more users, or you potentially add more usage. Same users just doing a lot more now, or more users coming into the system, you need more capacity to support that, users or usage. And when you do that, and it requires a licensing event, it requires for you to kind of figure out where's the budget going to come from, who's going to fund this, there's a project, you basically get delayed. By the time you do that and you add capacity, your users feel great. Now we don't have performance issues. We are ahead of capacity. By that time, you've already added more users and more usage. So you're always chasing capacity. So anytime you're kind of behind that, you have a large portion of these users that are spending time where they're really not getting the experience that they were promised, both by Tableau and this new world of data analytics where they can do whatever they want. So instead of chasing capacity, why don't we actually plan for capacity, right? That's the idea behind it. But in a way that is scalable economically. What do I mean by that? For those of you who know Tableau for a while, they know that there was an interactor-based model. We had a user-based model even prior to launching our new subscriptions. That was, you could do all of whatever you wanted to do in server, or you could do the desktop. But now we have different functionalities that are tiered just right for what the user wants to do. So we want to make sure that you're not really chasing capacity, but you're planning for capacity. In addition to just the capacity one, think about the additional benefits that you get. You can plan for peak capacity. What I mean by that, I have certain strategic accounts where they have very seasonal peaks, right? They're using Tableau to do something end of quarter, new product launch, if you will. At that time, they double, triple, 4 times the capacity. But they don't need to keep all of that hardware running throughout the year. And then they can bring it down. So you can do that. In addition to that, you actually have a much more predictable way of budgeting, because I'm going to add 500 users next year. I'm going to add 5,000 users the following year. So I can just simply multiply how many of creators I need, how many explorers, how many viewers. And if you do the chargeback model, where maybe there's a central procurement way of doing things at central IT, but charge back to the business units, it's a much easier way for you to do that as well, right? So that's the additional benefit. Now that leads us into this. As we're thinking about capacity, I want to plan how my creators, viewers, and explorers are growing and expanding. But before we even do that, we have to understand how many do I need today, right? So now we'll go into sort of understanding what are the different things that these users can do, okay? The value of each user type. What do I mean by that? What can I do as a viewer? So to me, who is a viewer? I believe that's everybody in your organization, right? This is a leader in your organization who wants to see the state of the business. This is a manager in your org who wants to see all the projects. Are they on track or not on track? This could be a developer who wants to see which are the most requested features of our customers. This could be a customer success rep who wants to make sure that they are doing enablement and adoption activities that are most useful and efficient for our customers. Everybody needs data. So to me, this is everybody, right? But what can they actually do in the system? This is not just, so maybe viewer makes you think, okay, I see a report, I see a static report, and that's it. So let's actually go to the details of what they can actually do. So I would like to see the data. I see a fancy dashboard, that's great, but that's not where you stop. I want to be able to see that, but I want to be able to see that on any device. A viewer has that capability, that they are not actually being charged or they're not adding add-on pieces just because they want to see it on a mobile or a tablet or an embedded way. A viewer is a viewer. They can view the data anywhere. In addition to that, if they want to be able to slice a data. So this particular example, we're going to use this example to kind of keep driving additional points around feature functionality. I want to be able to just go to the state and filter, bias towards California, that's where I live, so I want to see just the California data, right? So these are people who are actually not just viewing, they're able to do the filtering of that data as well. So I see that. Now, in addition to that, I also want to have full interactivity. For some of you who are maybe very new to Tableau, we use this combination of filters, but also visual filters, where people can just quickly click on some things. So if I want to click on a quick little bar, I want to see just the relevant detail. So I have, as a viewer, full interactivity. I can click on things and I can find sort of the next level of detail, if you will. All of those things are things I can do as a viewer. In addition to that, I can actually ask other people to dig into something that I find interesting. So we'll take an example here. At the bottom left, I see that there is maybe one subcategory or some dimension that is driving negative profit ratio. I want somebody to actually look at it. So in each of these Tableau server dashboard, there's a little section called comments at the top right. When you click on comments, a lot of people think comments. Okay, I just want to add a comment. It's not just comments. It is actually one of the collaboration features that we've added, and we're going to add more and more. So I can actually take a snapshot of what I'm looking at any point in time. I can add a little comment. This one is just for myself. Can you please investigate what happened in Q3 for that particular products category? So what I'm actually doing is I'm actually asking somebody to do that next step. So this is, viewer is a very powerful license all in itself. What happens here is that the people you're tagging, so at the bottom when I say @Lovekesh, that person is going to get an alert through an email. Somebody mentioned you in this dashboard with a quick little snapshot of this so they can see what this is all about. When they click on that image, it takes them directly to the dashboard, and they can say, oh, okay, somebody asked me to investigate. Let me go ahead and start doing that investigation. That particular piece will come into Explorer, so we'll come to that. There's a couple of other things. I don't want to create too many screenshots, so I will try to relay this the best visual way that I possibly can. So a viewer is somebody who can do all of this. So for those of you who wanted to take quick little notes, there is a matrix as well that you can go to Tableau, and then you can see that matrix, but it's basically in the matrix, but there's maybe a little bit different word, so go ahead and take the screenshot if you want. I want to be able to see the data. I want to have full interactivity. I want to be able to subscribe to a view. What that really means is that if I want to get that snapshot of my visual on a daily basis, Tableau platform should be able to deliver that. That, to me, is subscription. I'm subscribing to this view that I get. I can receive alerts. So if there are other people who have set up alerts to say anytime a particular metric meets a threshold above or below, something that we are measuring or monitoring, then I can get an alert on an email, or an alert on my mobile device. So I can do all of that. And then I can add those comments and mentions so that people can kind of take that next step. That is a viewer. Hopefully you learned something today. Because a lot of people have mentioned to me, like a viewer, oh, that's like, I see a static image. No. Now, let's talk about what an Explorer can do. So, yes?
One question about the viewers. You notice it said it could export PDF. Does that mean they can't export to Excel?
So can we hold on that question? I believe we have a healthy time for Q&R at the end. Again, I'm just going to say R, not A, but I believe we do have time so that we can address many questions and everybody can hear that. Is that okay? Thank you. All right, so what can I do as an Explorer? So wouldn't it be great if that particular thing that we were looking at the bottom, right, that negative profit ratio, that I could quickly, without having to figure out how to export the data, what do I do next, that I can actually, within the platform itself, just go to a place where I can see that next level of detail. In fact, entire data that supports that one data point, right? So that full data is something that explorers will have access to, right? This is the full data that is only relevant for that red bar. This is not the entire database dump, if you will, right? This is full data for that particular view. So anytime you hover over any mark in Tableau, you see this little toolbar that comes up that says keep only, exclude, and the little data grid. Clicking on that data grid, wonder if I have a pointer here. There we go, there, right here, right? Can I point there? Too far. There, right there. When you click on that, then another window opens up that shows you a summary data and a full data. So I can actually start seeing, oh, that one bar was based on 3 different orders, and I can see how much was the profitability in each one of them. So I could just understand those underlying factors to a level, right? It is all based on the data that I have. If these are being caused by some extraneous factors for which I don't have any data, well, then Godspeed. All right. Or, so we're still on Explorer now. What else can I do as an Explorer? What if I could just create a view? So we were looking at a California view. I create a California view, and I can create a view that everybody has in their dropdown. So everybody who comes to this dashboard, they see the standard view, which in Tableau would be called original view, as it was published. When you add more filters to it, and it could be multiple filters, California, maybe just for a product segment, if you will. I want to see just that view, but I want to have that as a dropdown for everybody. So I'm creating a custom view, sales summary for California, and I'm making it public so other people can actually see that simply as a dropdown. I want to see sales for California. I want to see sales for this region. I want to see furniture data for California, as many as you want. So that is a custom view, because my team only cares about California. They don't care about anything else. Well, we do, but for this example, we don't. That's the custom view. Even better, so subscriptions was a great thing that we launched, right? Everybody could start getting subscriptions. Well, there was not a problem, but something that maybe we didn't anticipate. A lot of people started subscribing to things, just how we do it in email, subscribe to a lot of things. And what happens when you get 500 emails Monday morning? You don't pay attention to any of them. Even the good stuff gets lost, right? So for that, we'd actually created data alerts. So this is about subscriptions there. I'm sending a subscription to myself, but I can subscribe others in the view. That's great. I'm subscribing people because I'm the helpful kind, right? I create this view. I want to make sure everybody gets this view. But I actually want to take this one level further. What if I could only send something like a subscription only when something important happens? So we can keep doing the subscriptions, but only when we're at 310K for California. I think by the time we hit 500, that's going to be an important milestone in our org. So I want to create an alert, and I create this alert and subscribe others to it. So I want to make sure that sometimes these words, the creator, the explorer, and the viewer, might seem very simple, like, oh, view, that's it, explore. But think about the functionality here, right? This is almost like a creator-like functionality. You are creating an alert for others to get. So they are alerted only when something important happens that's relevant both up or down. Maybe we're measuring defect rate in manufacturing. Anytime a defect rate for a product goes above a particular percentage, that's just not acceptable. I want to get an alert. Some of my customers are actually using this kind of functionality on shop floors with people running around with iPads. Like, oh, here's interesting. Okay, I need to go to that section of my plant and see what's really going on because I just got an alert about that section. So very powerful stuff. So that is all the things that we can do as an explorer. I'm going to keep going. Now we get to the actual exploring part. Wouldn't it be great if I can actually ask my own questions of the data? So that was great. I was investigating why that bar was negative X%. I want to see what products and customers have that negative profit ratio. I want to actually break this down further. So what would I do? I'm looking into that detail. I'm going to go ahead and click this edit button, right? So people who will have Explorer functionality will have this edit enabled, right? So when they click on edit, it actually takes them into a different mode where they can start adding more fields to a view if they want. Whatever is available in the data model, they can start adding. So in this example, I go ahead and add product line and customer name. And now I have a much lower level of detail, all within the platform. So I get it that a lot of times we do want to maybe download data and do some additional analysis because that's the thing that just bugs me. I get it that there are times that you need to download the data. A lot of people say, oh, why do you need it? And their responses are, oh, because I want to do the additional analysis. Well, what additional analysis do you want? If it's coming from another data source that's just not in Tableau, maybe I get it. if you're going to add something else to it that I just can't understand. But let's talk through it, because I just did that additional analysis. So a lot of places where we can keep them in the Tableau platform, so we're not worried about data security, because as soon as you're downloading data, a bunch of things are going to happen, right? People are going to start typing over it, like what really happened, and then this is being emailed around, and before you know it, you get a call from somebody. It's like, oh, I wasn't supposed to send that, but we deal with Excel all the time. We're sending that. That's fine. Let's keep using Excel for certain things, but if you want to do that additional analysis, it's all available here as well. Or I could ask a question using another published data set. So certain words are key here. I am going to be able to ask additional questions of any existing data set that exists on Tableau server. Published data set basically means that Tableau server is aware that there is a data model and supporting data that's already published for others to use. That particular piece will come to in Creator. How do you publish a data set? But if the data set has been published, which may be one or many different data sorts just joined together, right? You could call it published, certified, curated data set, something that I know is useful for my analysis. I connect to the data all within the browser, so I'm still within the browser. I will have a list of all the data connections that I have access to. I connect to it, and I can start doing whatever analysis that I want to do. Bar graph, dashboards, whatever I want. So I can go to that. I can ask my own questions of any existing data set. Everybody with me so far? Yes? Okay. Helpful so far? Okay. Well, that was just for my self-boost. I know some of you are going to say yes. Okay, let's kind of just understand what the Explorer can do. So this may be a good time for you to take that picture, right? So Explorer is a user who can do everything that a viewer can do, but they can see and download that underlying data as well. They can create and share a custom view. They can subscribe others to a view, obviously themselves as well. They can create a data alert, obviously receive a data alert as well. They can edit a visual to ask a new question. Right? That's what we did when we went and broke down that bar by product, by customer. And then they can create a brand new visual from an existing data source. That's what an Explorer can do. A lot of good stuff. All right, so you can understand how much time it took for me to put those screenshots together. So I'm not going to do every possible thing a creator can do. We'll get you straight to the summary slide. So what can I do as a creator? But before we go that, one other thing is like you're saying, okay, this is all great stuff, but this is all a lot of Tableau speak. What can I do in Tableau? If you're looking at something where you haven't really adopted Tableau yet, you don't have a Tableau server, I also think explorers are anybody who potentially use maybe Excel like 10, 15 minutes of their daytime. Because they are trying to find something because their manager said, can you go and figure this out? So on an average, maybe if they're spending 10, 15 minutes, right, that probably is an explorer. I mean, you could question me. You could say, well, that makes no sense. And I think a lot of your points will be valid as well. But to me, that may be a good threshold. Anybody who's spending maybe more than 30 minutes of their time in an Excel, in my opinion, is a creator. The kind of thing that they do on a daily basis in a spreadsheet, trying to find that data, they're doing these weird VLOOKUPs or whatnot, they're trying to create a data mart within a spreadsheet, those are all creators. So that may be one key takeaway. 15 minutes, you don't seem to agree, so we'll talk about that. Okay, that's fine. I think we have good time to talk and have a healthy discussion. But in my opinion, viewer is everybody. Explorer is somebody who's spending maybe 10, 15 minutes. And a creator is somebody who's spending maybe 30 minutes of their time kind of finding that next level of insight. In terms of Tableau speak, this is an overall picture of what people can do, right? So I am connecting to many different data sources, whether they're cloud database or they're relational data sources or they're flat files, if you will. I'm potentially preparing, cleaning, standardizing data using Tableau Prep, right? I might be actually creating a curated data source from Tableau Prep. Once I've done that, I may be actually creating the visuals as well, creating the dashboards for others to use. And I put that on a Tableau server or a Tableau online. You'll see there's Tableau Public and Reader there with a little like stop sign. To me, those for large organizations or any organization who cares about data security, don't go there. Please, please. But because those are products that are part of the portfolio, just had to list them there. And then they can embed that, right? And then they can interact with all of these visuals. So they basically have the end-to-end suite of Tableau products. In terms of that speech bubbles that we have, a creator is now an Explorer Plus. This is all the stuff they can do. They're cleaning, standardizing, combining data. They are then potentially just exporting that data somewhere for others to use. They're potentially publishing that data to Tableau server for others to use. They can connect to new data sources. They're the ones who are spending a lot of time maybe covering the unknown unknowns, the hidden insights in the Tableau, in their data. In addition to that, they might be the ones who are integrating Tableau with other tools, right? Maybe that's with R or Python within Tableau Desktop. Maybe that's running the sentiment analysis within Prep itself, as we saw earlier. So all of those things, that's what a creator can do. So far, we talked a lot about features and functionality, where it falls in terms of a creator, explorer, and viewer, right? I also mentioned that I spend a lot of time kind of analyzing data and say who does what. So what I'm actually going to show you now is how do we actually look at usage analytics, maybe in Tableau or maybe in another platform, and try to figure out what people are doing, how often they do it. And this is where I'm going to slow it down, because I think there's an important point to be made here, which is if you think about adoption of anything, sort of like a cyclical thing in terms of the more you know, the more you do. The more you do, the more you know. And it just keeps driving adoption, right? So I'm using that simple metaphor or simple analogy to say the more you're actually doing anything of, chances are you're going to either want to use more functionality, or that you're already using more functionality, or you uncover that new functionality, and as soon as you uncover, you're like, I want to use that. Because if you are a heavy user of anything, you will find those additional functionality useful for you. So I'm going to use that as a way to kind of slice and dice data. And for that, I'm going to switch to the other screen. Before I do that, we're going to see this visual. That's going to look very complicated. I'll try to keep things very simple, as you've seen from some of the previous demos. So I'm going to break this down, and we're going to focus on one thing at a time to try to keep it simple, because believe me, this is actually very simple, just looks a little complicated. So let's unlock this. Oh, password is incorrect. OK, we got it right second time. OK, perfect. I'm going to stand behind here so I can operate my mouse. OK, so what are we looking at over here? So in my opinion, OK, how do we keep it simple? Again, please, if you don't want to look at it because it's confusing, you don't. Maybe just look at me. All right. We need just two things. Who's coming in? A user alias, if you will. And when did they come in? If they came in 10 times, we have that data. If they came in 100 times, we have that data. So this could actually be just data from a Tableau server. This could actually be usage analytics from anywhere else, any other platform. And quite frankly, this is just data that has just those two fields that are represented a few different ways. And as I said, I live, dream, breathe data, I guess. So I did a lot of analysis, and I'm going to try to relate to you what I have seen so far. Oh, sorry. So top left, that X and Y axis is simply days since last login and the number of events. So look at the red bars. We are slicing that data simply based on recency. How often were you in the system? Now, there might be some people who just came into the system because somebody said, hey, go check out this cool dashboard. They came in once. They came in just yesterday. So you might think, oh, that really shouldn't be a creator. So all I'm saying here is this is not creator, explorer, viewer stratification. I'm intentionally calling it top tier, middle tier, bottom tier stratification. But this is actually a good proxy for user behavior because we will use a combination of few of these. What I have done in this one is anybody who's come in within the last week, chances are, again, not everybody, but chances are that they depend on Tableau to do their daily job function, right? Then chances are that they are actually going to use more and more functionality. So they're a top tier user. Anybody who comes in once a month, their last login was within the last 30 days, that's your middle tier. And everybody else is their bottom tier. That translates into a population that serves 39%, 25%, and 36%. That's how the split is. So I'm just looking at just recency. How often did they come in? With me? That makes sense? Let's look at the same graph, bottom left, events. Let's slice it the other way. I'm looking at everybody who drove more than average adoption. I actually personally don't like averages, but every time I talk about percentiles, people don't like it. So I say, okay, let's give it up. Let's just talk about averages, something fairly easy for people to understand. Anybody who has more than average events, in this case, there's 252 events per user over a period of time, whatever that period of time is, doesn't matter to me. But if you're driving more activity in the system, that's more than average, you're a top tier user. Let's stratify the rest of the population and take their average and split it up again. Just very simple concepts. And again, I know that there's a lot of people who've looked at this, and we've had discussions. People say, oh, well, that doesn't make any sense. Yes, not everybody really is going to be a top-tier user that you see in the top over there or the right over there. I get it, but these are actually very good directional proxies. Gives you a guidance. When I look at that, and the overall population breaks into 18%, 26%, and 56%. Top tier, middle tier, bottom tier. What is the third one over there? I personally like this quite a bit. That is weekly logins. So every dot that you see, that means that a person logged in a week, whether they came and hit one dashboard or 20 dashboards or saw 5 reports, doesn't matter, they came in. And they came in the following week, if I see that followed by another dot. A big gap in there, that just means maybe it wasn't quarter end, they didn't care about it, or month end, they came back again. So when people are coming in over and over again, week after week, or skipping a few weeks, vacation time, they come in again, right? Those are good proxies as well. In this particular scenario, I just said I have about 27 weeks worth of data. That's about 6 months. I'm going to say everybody who's come in at least 1 week a month. In a different way, I'm looking at that 30-day recency. If you come in 1 week, that means you have at least 6 weeks of activity. I believe you're a certain type of user. If you have 6 to 13 weeks of activity every other week, then you're a middle tier user. And if you come in, let's say, take a few weeks, not every single week, because people are going to take vacation. But out of 27 weeks, if you have 23 weeks of activity or 24 weeks of activity, I believe you're a top tier user. You keep coming in over and over again. When I look at that overall population, that breaks into 29, 17, and 54 in this particular instance of the data that I had. Just another proxy. I'm not going to go into the fourth one. That kind of gets a little confusing, but that's simply a Pareto chart. A lot of people know the 80-20 principle, so we're just using that to say what percentage of people are driving 80% of the activity. In this case, it happened to be 14% of the people that drove 80% of the activity. Then we took the rest 20 and we said, what is the 80% of that? Well, that's another 16% or 26%. So again, I don't want to confuse you, but a few proxies around recency, around average events, around frequency, how often they come in, I think are great directional proxies for you to just find that out. And simply, this might look complicated. It's a fairly simple dashboard. You put in an additional level of detail, and as you're analyzing this data, whether it's coming from Tableau server or whether it's coming from another system where you say, this is another system of record for usage analytics, we want to see that. This is where people will actually ask a question. Oh, I want to know that particular person. When did Jason come in? Go ahead and find out when Jason came in, look for a particular user, and just start seeing their activity. Some simple analysis like this, and again, this is just some fancy tool tips, right? But it essentially says for a user what the events are, how often did they log in, and based on that, what are we deciding those users are going to do? A lot of smiles have disappeared. Does not make sense? Does it make sense to an extent? Okay, I will mention one other thing. So internally, I'm one of the principal authors of kind of doing some of this analysis on our own server data, on some of my customers who've said, okay, we want to be able to analyze some of that. So I've done a lot of this. And interestingly enough, as you look at this, the recency always just shows me a little bit higher on the top tier. I do end up capturing a lot of users who may not be creators, but they are just more recent users, right? So I try to use a combination of a couple of those. I just say, okay, what if I simply, so we're now going to get a little bit more complicated. What if I simply just take out all the people who have had no more than 1 week of activity? They came in once and they never came back again. Somebody I call a one-hit wonder, right? They should, in my opinion, they should be a viewer still. Everybody should be a viewer because they will come back and say, oh, I still need that one report. Don't take away my license from me. But those are users that I can take away from any of the top and the middle tiers, right? Because some of those might actually show up just because they were coming in just last 1 week. It's 1 week of activity. So my top left graph might show them as a top tier user. So I could just put some additional filters and slice and dice it by just combining some of these. And if none of this makes sense, I will leave you with this. 10%, 25%, 65% is a great way to get started. A lot of my customers who are doing this analysis, I've done a lot of this analysis. I'm not a statistics guy, but based on some things that I've read, based on the normal curve, and whether the Tableau usage actually applies to it or not, it actually works very well. 10, 25, 65 is a great way to get started. So if none of this makes sense, make a note. Hey, we figured it out. Navkesh said it's 10, 25, 65. Now, I will say there are some of my customers who are saying, you know what, this is great. I like the viewer functionality, but actually we want a lot more of explorers because some of those things are very key for us. So I get it, and it will be different in different industries. I get that the usage profile will actually be different in manufacturing as it will be in high tech. There are some of my high tech customers who are saying, forget the viewer. Just give me all creators and explorers. Okay, great. Like it. I mean, that's great for us. That's great for you. But I get that that's also not going to be the norm. A lot of the other customers around, maybe even education or healthcare, they might have a heavy viewer mix. So hopefully some of the thought process around how we actually slice and dice data is helpful as you kind of take this back. Say, okay, maybe we have a way to start doing some slicing and dicing, if you will. Again, if you're working with us, obviously people like myself who are sales consultants, we can assist you in that thought process as well. But my thought was, not only do I want to show you, and this is why I didn't want to get straight into it, I also want to show you the value of individual user types. Because what I don't want you to walk away with is everybody gets that creator is more expensive than explorer, which is more expensive than viewer. Right? I don't want you to just take away, it's like, okay, viewer is a cheaper model, so we just go at it, and we just get everybody into viewer, and then later on you feel like, well, maybe that was not the right decision because we didn't really understand what each one of those users could really do. So the earlier slides around what a user can do would be helpful in kind of determining that. And then if you want to do a data-driven approach of just slicing, dicing data, hopefully this as well. If nothing works, 10, 25, 65. So, having said that, I'm going to switch back, if I can figure this out. Yes. Leads us to the big question. How many creator explorers or viewers do I need today? Okay, allow me to be a little bit philosophical, and I'll say if you're asking this question, in my opinion, you may be asking the wrong questions. I challenge you to remind yourself that data is everywhere, right? I challenge you to not be drowned with that data that is around you by taking that first step in moving towards data democratization, right? So I know some of you are going to say, well, let's talk about viewer. Does everybody need to be a viewer? Yes, absolutely. If I'm running any organization, everybody has to be a viewer. They need to be able to do that because otherwise they will still get to the data, they will download it, they will fat finger the data, and they will make the wrong decisions. You decide whether it's worth the risk or not. And that first step in data democratization can be taken because most successful data-driven organizations are not measured by their ability to answer the same question repeatedly. You hear that at Tableau over and over again. It's about their ability to use data to be able to ask the question that hasn't been contemplated yet. And that can be only done when we believe the people who know the data should be able to ask their questions. That the software should actually just fade away. It should be designed for deeper thinking, and it should not become an inhibitor in asking that next question. And that analytics can drive that change. And hopefully some of the things that I showed around the data and how people use it can help you drive that change at your org.